In this tutorial video, we're going to talk about how to add an effect to something like text or footage or an object, and how to then mess with the settings in that effect to create a cool animation. So I'll give you a preview of what we're going to create. We're going to use an effect called Pixel Poly, and as we watch it, I'll hit spacebar in my comp timeline down here to show you what it'll look like. So as you can see, it randomly explodes and one follows the other, and that's all there is to it. So what I want to do is, with this Pixel Poly comp selected right here, I'm going to duplicate it. So this is just a trick. Now you might be starting your own new comp, and that's okay. You can click to create a new comp here and change your settings. I chose 6 seconds for my settings, but otherwise it's high definition in the basic settings that it starts with. But I like to use this because I have this text down here that I kind of want to keep for every comp that I make. So I'm going to click on this comp here and do Command or Control D to duplicate it, and then right click to rename it. So this one will be Pixel Poly New, and I'll double click it to open it up, and you can see this comp is open down here, and I'll get rid of these 2 layers so we can kind of start fresh with this. So again, you see just this random text that's identifying my name and what this particular effect is. So I'll go ahead and grab my text tool, click and type the text. Now I can double click and go to my character panel, and I can change it to whatever color I'm interested in, and I can come over here and choose a different font. And if you want to scroll through some of your fonts, once you click in here and this word becomes highlighted, this font becomes highlighted, you should be able to hit the down or up key on your keyboard to scroll through the different fonts. So I'll go ahead and choose Artland. I love this font. And then choose the selection tool, drag it over, and I think I'm going to make it a lot bigger. So I'm just going to scrub the size here. So for right now, I think that's good. That's what I want to work with. Now, in order to add an effect, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can go up to the Effect menu and then choose from the different effects here. I like to work with this Effect menu, and the reason why is because I can search, and I don't know, I just like to have it up here. So I know that Pixel Poly is going to be in simulation, and I can look down here and do Pixel Poly. But you can also search up here for the various words. So if I type pixel, you'll see that a couple of things have pixel in the title, but there's Pixel Poly. So if you don't know what Pixel Poly does, double click and add it to your text, and then scrub through your playhead and see what it does. And don't just keep your playhead at the very beginning, because as you can see, if my playhead's at the very beginning and I add this effect to this text, it doesn't look like anything happened. And so I could potentially come over here and delete this and never find out what this one does, and it could be really cool. Now, that having been said, you might put an effect on there and you might scrub through it and it still isn't showing anything. If that happens, play with some of the settings, and if it's still not showing, it might just mean that it's not going to work on text. It might work on video footage, it might work on a picture, it might even work on the audio that you put into your project. So some of the effects aren't going to work for whatever the object is that you're trying to apply it to. But for right now, as I scrub it through, I can see that something is happening. So I'm going to move my playhead a little bit in just so I can kind of see what each of these effects does. Now, once I did that, the Effect Controls panel magically appeared. And these are where you can control what the effect looks like. You can also do it down here. So this is my pixel text, and you can see that you can change the properties of the text itself. You can transform the text itself. You can rotate it, scale it, change the position, etc. Or once you've added an effect, you'll see this effects section, and if you toggle down, you'll see all these different options. So for right now, I'm just going to work here because this is easier since it's kind of left right of your composition panel. So if I toggle force down, I can see what happens. What does force mean? Well, it looks like force essentially means it's either a little explosion or a huge explosion. So I can go ahead and hit spacebar and it's going to play it. So that was kind of lame, but it might work for whatever I'm trying to create. It doesn't work for me right now because I'm just playing around and it wasn't as cool, but that might be something you're interested in. So now I know though what force means. It can go a big explosion out, or it looks like even a big explosion kind of in. So I like the bigger explosion, but I'm going to bring it down just a little bit now that I know what that does, just so I can see what happens with things like gravity. So with gravity, it looks like how fast it might fall. And if I go this way, it might actually go up. So that's interesting. I want to see what it looks like when it goes up. So let's again start from the beginning, hit the space bar to play it. So it's not necessarily what I want, but at least now I know I can do it. So I'll go ahead and choose gravity this way. And I can choose some spin, and it looks like that's going to spin some of my objects. And then I can also change where the blast comes from. So if I have something hitting it from this side, it's better to have that force over here. And if I actually had it coming from the top, let's see what that looks like. Let's go back and watch it again. Okay, so now I know what all of those different things do, and it would just be a matter of playing with each of these. So that kind of looks like confetti, so I'll do texture polygon. Grid spacing gives me more or gives me less. I like it when it has more. And I like when things are more random in terms of speed or direction, kind of like the wind's hitting it as it explodes. And then the start time is going to tell me, okay, my comp is 6 seconds. So when do I actually want it to start? Right when it plays? Right now, that's what it is. As soon as it plays, it explodes. But let's say I want to actually have it explode 2 seconds in. So I can come in here and either type 2 for 2 seconds, or I can scrub it. Just be careful. Right now, it's going to start 18 seconds in, but my whole comp is 6 seconds, so we're never going to see it. So we'll go ahead and pull that back to, 1.5. That's fine. And we'll watch this again. Okay, so if you don't like the settings that you set, if you like to just play around with each one of them and it kind of really messes it up and you just want to go back and now set the things that you want to set, you can always click this reset word. And when you click that reset word, it's going to reset it back to the original settings. So I kind of like the original settings, but I do want to start a little bit later. And I do like a little bit more randomness. And I want it to really have an explosion. I really like the explosion. So let's watch that. Okay. So that was a really big, quick explosion, and it filled up the whole screen, and I really like it. And it didn't start right away. And there we go. So now what I need to do is I'm going to actually edit this text a little bit more. Just because you've applied animation doesn't mean that you can't come in here and change the text after the fact. So I do want it to be a little bit smaller, and I want to move this over here because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this word pixel. So Command or Control D while I have that selected, and it's going to create a pixel 2 that I can drag down here and double click this and type poly. And maybe for that text, grab my selection tool and choose kind of this vibrant green. And if I hit spacebar, I can play it. And they're going to explode at the same time. So for this poly word, I'm going to actually start it maybe 2.3 in so they can go one right after the other. So let's watch that. And there we go. So that might have been a little bit too far ahead, so we'll just do that. And notice that when it's playing, it gets all these little green dots. This is it loading it or rendering it so that it can have smooth animation. So the bigger this gets, the more complex it gets. It might get pixelated. It might run slow the first time that you hit spacebar to preview it. Once it fills up totally with green, then that means it's fully rendered, and it'll try to play as smoothly and as on pace as possible. So let's go ahead and hit spacebar. And notice that whole green is filling up. And the green was ahead of my playhead, this little red line that's happening right here. So I didn't see any negative effects. But again, if I had a lot of stuff in here and it was really intense and heavy with the animation, it might be that you see some lag time. Just let it run through it once until you get a full solid green line, and then it should be able to show you the effect in real time. So this looks pretty good to me. So that's how to work with basic effects and how to play around and reset the effects, and then even duplicate comps and duplicate layers so that you don't have to do the same work twice.